She was just a hotel cleaner, until one phone call in flawless Dutch changed everything. He heard it. A billionaire passing by stopped in his tracks. The next day, she was called into the main office. No explanation, no warning. From mopping floors to sitting across from the hotel's mysterious owner. Her life began to shift in ways she never imagined. But what did he really want from her? And why her of all people? This isn't just a story about luck. It's about secrets, second chances, and a connection no one saw coming. Ready to find out what happens next? The sound of the alarm sliced through the stillness like a buzzsaw. 5 a.m. Again, Emily Tawes reached for her old clock radio and silenced it with a groggy swipe, staring at the cracked ceiling of her small studio apartment in Queens. The flickering shadows from the street lamp outside had danced on the peeling paint, reminding her of ghosts she hadn't invited. She exhaled deeply. Just another day, another chance. She dragged herself into the bathroom where the water was always ice cold. The hot line had stopped working weeks ago. As it splashed over her face, she repeated the mantra her grandmother had taught her in Spanish. And now she whispered in English, trying to believe it. One day at a time, one step forward. By 6:30 a.m., she was already clocking in through the back entrance of the Atoria Grand Hotel, a historic 5-star in Manhattan's Upper East Side. Her name tag read, Housekeeping Emily. She cleaned the 5th floor today, rooms, hallways, the executive lounge, maybe help in the breakfast buffet if short-staffed. She was fast, focused, and invisible, just like they liked her. But Emily was not who she seemed. She held a degree in foreign languages from Hunter College, top of her class, with honors, fluent in English, French, German, and most recently Dutch, a language she'd fallen in love with thanks to a visiting lecturer from Amsterdam during her senior year. They had kept in touch, and he'd mentored her virtually ever since. Still, life had other plans. Her mother's illness devoured all their savings. After her passing, Emily was left drowning in debt and took the first job she could find, housekeeping at the Atoria Grand. But she never stopped studying. Every evening after work, she took the Q line to the public library in Brooklyn, where she used the free computers to keep practicing Dutch, grammar exercises, and vocabulary drills. This morning felt like any other, until it didn't. While dusting the hallway near the penthouse suite, she heard footsteps and turned slightly, lowering her gaze out of habit. 3 men in suits strode past her. One of them stood out instantly. Tall, dark-haired, with silver streaks at his temples. Tailored navy suit, no tie, but unmistakable authority. Ethan Morgan, CEO of Morgan Lux Holdings. The billionaire who owned the hotel. Everyone on staff knew who he was. They whispered stories of his rise from poverty, his obsession with perfection, his legendary silence when walking the corridors. He was almost mythic. He barely looked at her. Or so she thought. A few hours later, during her lunch break, Emily sat alone in the staff lounge near the courtyard, reheating rice and beans from a Tupperware. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dr. Peter van Linden, her Dutch mentor. You passed your certification. Call me when you can. Heart pounding, she dialed him. As soon as he answered, she blurted out in Dutch. Did I really pass? Not only passed, Emily, you wasted it. You're now officially certified at a professional fluency level in Dutch. She couldn't stop smiling, her eyes filled with tears. Years of studying before dawn, staying late at the library, had finally paid off. She was still talking to Peter in Dutch, laughing, when the door creaked open behind her. She turned and froze. Ethan Morgan was standing there, one brow raised. I didn't mean to interrupt, he said in English, stepping further into the room. Were you speaking Dutch? Emily leapt to her feet, scrambling to end the call. Yes, sir. I'm so sorry. I was on break. It's fine, he interrupted calmly. Where did you learn it? I studied languages in college, sir. It's my passion. She avoided his gaze, embarrassed and a little afraid. There was a pause. She braced herself for a warning. But instead Ethan asked, What's your name? Emily Torres. Emily? He repeated, as if testing the sound of it. Then he nodded slowly. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your lunch. And just like that, he left. Emily was stunned. She sat down, her heart racing, trying to convince herself it was nothing. Just a curious moment, a passing interest. The next day, when she arrived at work, her supervisor called her aside. Human Resources wants to see you. Right now. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. HR? Was she in trouble? She walked down to the main office, knocking tentatively. The director of HR, Mrs. Valerie Green, looked up from her desk. Come in, Emily. Sit down. Emily clutched her hands tightly in her lap. I received a very unusual request this morning, Mrs. Green began. Mr. Morgan has asked that you be reassigned. Effective immediately. You'll be moving into a newly created position. Emily blinked. Reassigned? Assistant in International Guest Relations. It took a moment for the words to register. I'm sorry. What does that mean? It means you'll be working with our high-profile guests, particularly those who don't speak English. You'll assist with translation, hospitality, and cultural coordination. Emily was speechless. The role comes with a significant salary increase, Mrs. Green added. Roughly 3 times your current pay. Emily's voice trembled. Is this real? Mrs. Green smiled faintly. Very real. Mr. Morgan doesn't make random decisions. He says your talents are wasted where you are. You start today. He'd like to see you in his office after lunch. As Emily walked out of the HR office, her mind still spinning, she passed by the same hallway she used to mop each morning. But today, everything looked different. The golden chandeliers, the velvet carpets, even the elevator music, it all felt like part of a new world. She had just stepped into a world she never thought she'd belong to. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. Why her? What had Ethan Morgan seen in a hotel cleaner speaking Dutch over her lunch break? And more importantly, what was he really looking for? It was all too much to process in one breath. But deep down, something whispered. This was just the beginning. If you were Emily, standing at the edge of a life-changing opportunity given by a mysterious billionaire, what would you do? Of course. Here's part 2 of the rewritten story, approximately 1,000 words, in a suspenseful, emotionally engaging tone that builds from part 1. Emily stood in front of the mirror in the staff dressing room, no longer in her cleaner uniform, but in a tailored navy skirt, silk blouse, and soft leather heels. Clothes that fit her perfectly, as if someone had studied her closely. Her name tag now read, Enter International Guest Relations Associate. The absurdity of it all made her chest tighten. How had her life flipped so quickly? Just 2 days ago, she'd been scrubbing marble tiles in silence. Now, she was expected to sit across from diplomats and CEOs, interpreting conversations in multiple languages for one of the most powerful men in the hospitality industry. As she made her way to the executive suite where Ethan Morgan awaited her, Emily's heels clicked on polished tile in rhythm with her heartbeat. She walked past the opulent chandeliers and high-end art pieces she once dusted. Guests and staff now met her eyes with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. One man even stepped aside for her. No one had ever done that before. Outside the suite, she paused. A bellhop nodded and opened the door for her. Inside, Ethan stood near the panoramic window, phone in one hand, gaze fixed on the skyline. When he turned and saw her, his expression shifted into something soft, almost proud. You look the part, he said, setting the phone down. How does it feel? Emily hesitated. Like I woke up in someone else's life. Ethan gave a slight laugh. The kind that carried more sadness than joy. Maybe you're just waking up in your own. They sat across from each other on sleek leather chairs. He poured 2 coffees, no assistants, no formalities. For a moment, they were just 2 people in a quiet room above the city. Let me be honest, Ethan said, his voice lower now. I didn't create this position for anyone else. I created it for you. Because I saw something. Actually, I heard something that made me realize I've been overlooking the most talented people by simply not looking. Emily's stomach fluttered. She wanted to trust him, but years of disappointment had made her cautious. Still, there was something in his eyes, a quiet conviction that kept her seated. Ethan leaned forward. I need your help this afternoon. There's a group of Dutch investors coming in. They're considering financing our first European expansion. I need someone who understands both languages and people. But I've never been in a negotiation like that, she said, the fear creeping in. I don't know the etiquette. I could mess everything up. I'm not hiring you for etiquette, Ethan said. I'm hiring you for empathy, for instinct. Everything else we can teach. What you have can't be taught. The weight of that compliment silenced her. She nodded, heart pounding. I'll do my best. Later that day, in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the river, Emily stood beside Ethan as the foreign investors arrived. Tall, sharp-eyed men with firm handshakes and unreadable smiles. She introduced herself in fluent Dutch, and the room visibly relaxed. The tension of potential misunderstandings eased. She translated with grace and precision, subtly adapting tones and expressions to keep both sides at ease. At one point, one of the men asked Ethan a question that was clearly a test. Before Ethan could answer, Emily gently stepped in, explaining the nuance of the cultural context. The man smiled. He leaned back and nodded, a silent victory. By the end of the meeting, Ethan was beaming. "You saved the entire deal," he whispered as they walked out. "I owe you more than I can say." As they stepped into the elevator alone for the first time since the meeting, Emily exhaled deeply. "I didn't think I could do it." "I did," he replied. "I saw at the moment I heard you speaking Dutch over lunch like it was the most normal thing in the world." There was a pause, heavy with things unsaid. Then Ethan spoke again, quieter. "Now I have a place I like to go when I need to think. Would you come with me tonight? No obligations, no expectations, just two people talking." Emily hesitated. She had never been invited into a space like that. Personal, intimate. But something inside her said yes before she could think too hard. That evening, Ethan drove them to a secluded rooftop garden on the edge of the city, away from the neon and glass. It was quiet up there, except for the hum of traffic far below. The stars were faint but present. A breeze moved through her hair. "Do you come here often?" she asked. "Only when I need to remember who I am," he replied. "Or figure out who I'm becoming." They sat on a bench overlooking the city lights, sipping wine from paper cups. Ethan talked about his early days, how he once cleaned rooms too, in a hotel not much different from this one. How building his empire had cost him more than he liked to admit. "I've made deals that earned millions, but never made me feel what I felt today. Watching you work," he confessed. Emily looked at him, eyes wide. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think this," he gestured between them, "might be the first honest thing I've had in years." The words hung in the air, tender, unspoken, charged with a meaning neither dared fully acknowledge. As she stared out at the lights of the city below, something shifted in her. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was seen. She was needed. And maybe, just maybe, she was cared for. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, negotiations, and late-night strategy sessions. Emily was no longer just the woman behind the cleaning cart. She had become Ethan's right hand and interpreter, an advisor, and slowly something more. The transformation wasn't just professional. She felt it in how people now looked at her, how she carried herself, how the hotel no longer seemed like a palace she cleaned, but a world she belonged to. Yet beneath the confidence, there was always a quiet tremor. A voice in her mind whispering, "What if all this vanishes as quickly as it appeared?" That fear clung to her, especially when she and Ethan would talk late into the evening. Their conversations drifting from logistics to life, from business to belief. He never crossed a line, never made her feel uncomfortable. And maybe that was what made it more dangerous. The way he saw her, not as a temporary escape, but as someone who mattered, left her vulnerable in a way success never had. One evening, after a particularly long day, Ethan invited her to dinner again. This time, not in a corner of the hotel, but at his home. She hesitated, even as she said yes. The car ride was quiet, filled with unspoken questions. His house was nothing like she imagined. Not the cold, modern castle of a millionaire, but a warm, lived-in home tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, filled with books, old photographs, and the faint scent of cedarwood. He cooked, not a chef, not a delivery. Just Ethan, in a button-down shirt and rolled sleeves, making pasta from scratch like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Over dinner, the distance between them dissolved. They spoke not as boss and employee, not even as two professionals, but as two souls who'd lived through enough to stop pretending. Ethan told her about his father, a janitor who raised him alone, whose dream was to open a hotel. A dream Ethan had made real, but never shared with anyone. Until now. Emily told him about her mother, about the photo she still kept taped to her mirror, about how every step forward she took felt like whispering to her memory, "I'm doing it, Mom. I'm still standing." After dinner, they sat on the porch as a quiet rain began to fall. The air between them pulsed with everything they weren't saying. Then, finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I'm not sure when it happened," he said softly, eyes on the horizon. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as someone I simply admire and started seeing you as someone I don't want to imagine this life without." Emily turned to him. Her breath caught halfway. She wanted to speak, to be clear, to say what she felt, but there were no perfect words for a moment like this. "Ethan, this is real for me too," she said, voice trembling. "But I've worked so hard to be taken seriously. If anyone finds out, they'll say what they always say." Ethan replied, that you don't belong here, that I only chose you because of something other than your mind. But you and I will know the truth. And if you choose to walk away to protect what you've built, I'll respect that. But if you choose to stay, I promise no one will ever doubt your worth. Not while I'm still breathing. In that moment, she saw him not as a man of power, but as a man of courage, offering not just love, but a partnership. She reached for his hand, her eyes steady. I'm not walking away. The next morning, the entire hotel buzzed with news. The Emperor Group had closed a record-breaking deal to expand into Europe, with Emily's work cited by investors as crucial. She was promoted again, this time as Director of International Strategy. But what made headlines across hospitality blogs was the announcement that stunned everyone. Ethan Morgan, the notoriously private mogul, had publicly introduced Emily, not just as his business partner, but as the woman he was building a future with. Critics whispered, gossip swirled. But it all faded when, 6 months later, the ribbon was cut on their Amsterdam hotel. Emily stood beside Ethan as cameras flashed and reporters cheered. The woman who once mopped the marble floors of a luxury hotel was now overseeing deals, mentoring teams, flying between continents. Her life had changed, but she had not. Not where it mattered. That evening, back in their suite, overlooking the canals, Ethan pulled her into a quiet embrace. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Emily looked at him, tears in her eyes. "About everything it took to get here. About how I almost gave up before that one phone call. About how love can find you when you least expect it." He smiled, and for a moment, nothing else existed but them. "Now let me ask you this. After everything Emily went through, what do you think made the biggest difference in her journey? Was it Ethan's support, her own resilience, or that one moment of courage when she answered a call in a foreign language? And most of all, did this story touch your heart? If it did, drop 100 in the comments to show your love. Let us know which country you're watching from. And don't forget to share this video with someone who still believes in dreams that come true at the most unexpected times.